guys, welcome back. In case you didn't know and in case you're new to my channel, so today what I want to do is I was thinking about my naked palette and about panning it, and I've been watching a lot of pan that palette finales and intros and listening to some of the struggles. So I decided to put together some tips that I am implementing when I'm panning, while I've been panning my Naked 3. I started back in November, and I know a whole lot of the fantastic ladies are going to be panning this palette as well, and they started in January, a little bit later, some of them. And I wanted to join in, but I also wanted to get a head start because I know what a nuisance it is to pan a palette. I know how difficult or how boring it can be, so I just decided to get a head start on it and just get it going before the year started. So I put together 10 tips that I use with my palette, and I will be inserting whatever shades I'm talking about. I will try to insert them here because, well, I was going to insert pictures, but you know what? No, I'm just going to go ahead and show you my palette. I mean, who cares? It'll be a pre-update before my next update for the Pan That Palette update. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so the first tip and the most obvious one, so let's just get it out of the way. There's a color here in the Naked 3 that's called Strange. So this is the color Strange right here. And this one, most obviously, my tip for that one is just use it to set your primer, your eye primer. I have even used it to set sometimes my inner corner, my concealer, because that smudges like crazy. Since I have allergies, I go in there and I scratch, and I'm always itching my eye and all of that lovely stuff. So the easiest way to pan that shadow is to use it to set your eye primer. I don't really use it for that. I use it as a brow bone highlighter, and because I like the shade, I like the formula and everything, so that's what I use it for. But that's a really known and sure way that you're gonna get through those lighter shadows in any palette really quick. My next tip number 2 is you have all these colors, and for the most part, the least liked colors are the darker ones. Everybody likes the light ones, the neutral ones, the fun ones, but then we have these darker shadows in the end, and we don't know what to do with them, and we don't want to use them a certain way or on their own. So what you can do aside from using them as crease shades is you can mix these darker shades together and just make a different color. Just mix this one with a really light one, and you'll create a whole different color that maybe you had never even thought of or you didn't think you would like, and then you'll totally end up liking that shadow. So you're going to be killing 2 shadows with 1 brush, like technically, literally, yes. So mix up your colors. Mix this one up with a lighter one, maybe this one with this other one, and you could create like a purplish, lighter pinkish color. My dog is distracting me, sorry. So yeah, just go in and mix your colors and play with your colors, and more often than not you'll find out that you really like those shades, and you'll just have more fun with your palette in general. So another tip that I have for the darker shade, this one right here, what is it called? Dark Side. This shadow right here, Dark Side, I use to set my liner. So I use a brown liner or a black liner, whatever it is. I just go in here and I use it to set my liner. And I have had, as you can see, I hit a very good amount of pan on there. So that is a really good way to get this shade used up. I have tried it as an eyeliner itself, but I find that I don't like it too much, so I just use it to set my liner, and that's helped me move through it a little bit quicker. Here's another obvious one. Tip number 4. Foil your shadows and use them wet, because they're going to go way faster than if you're just using them dry. For me, the shadows that I use wet in this palette, they would have to be the lighter ones, like this one right here. I've also used this one on occasion, but mostly it's this color right here. It's called Dust. That's the one that I used mostly for foiling, and it does go quicker. It makes the shadows go quicker, but don't use too much. Don't make them too wet because your eye is gonna get crusty as hell. Like it's gonna like dry up on you, and you're gonna have like cakiness on your eye, and it's gonna look so it's gonna feel uncomfortable. Maybe it won't look that bad, but it's gonna feel really uncomfortable. So I don't suggest wetting your shadows so much. So there's another tip for you. Tip number 5, when you are using your eyeshadows for eyeliner, the best thing to do is just get a little scraping tool, whatever it is you have handy, and scrape some of the shadow out and put it in a little pan. Don't go directly into the shadow and with a wet brush, or put drops in there or liquid, because you will get really bad hard pan, which is what happened with this one. I thought I could be lazy and just put the mixer in there and just use it straight out of there, and that just does not work. It got really hard, so I had to scrape some of it off, and it just doesn't work. So whatever you do, just scrape it into another little pan and use it as a, mix it in that little pan and use it from there, because it's gonna be a pain in the butt. And that itself helps you use a ton of shadow. So that's a really good way to just get some quick use and hit some quick pan, and it works. Tip number 6, and I use this and I love it and I forget to use it, but use a sponge tip applicator. Those sponge tip applicators that everybody wants to be snobby about, that everybody throws out, and no, I'm gonna use my Tom Ford brushes because I'm too good for a damn sponge tip applicator. No, get yourself some sponge tip applicators and use those for your shadows, and trust me, it makes so much of a difference. You will create pan way faster than using a brush, especially since there are some brushes that are really soft and it just takes forever. The little sponge tip applicators pick up a lot of product, and I like them. I don't know why a lot of people like to complain about them, because I like those applicators and I use them on myself all the time. So there you go. I hope that one is a good cheap alternative to going and buying some really expensive brushes. Use a sponge tip applicator. Tip number 7, you might want to start doing grunge looks. For these shadows, for the dark shadows right here, especially for these two, but these 3 in general, you might want to do a grunge look. If you don't know what a grunge look is, it's basically a 1 or 2 shadow look where it's just like, there's no gradient, there's nothing, there's just that one shadow look, and that helps you go through those dark shadows really quick, because if you're consistently doing those looks, then you're gonna go through those darker shades, and who knows, you might even enjoy it. I started doing it and I started to really enjoy it, so it is a look that I like to do and that I've done more often, and it's also helped me with getting through some darker shadows. So look up a tutorial how to do a grunge look if you don't know what that is, but that is a good tip for using up darker shadows. Number 8, repress your shadows. And I know once you hit that pan and you go through that glorious moment, like, you don't want to cover that pan up. You don't want to start over again. You want to enjoy it and just look at it and, you know, just be happy with your success of hitting pan. But let me tell you something. Once you hit pan and it starts expanding more, and it will get to this point, to the little nooks and crannies and the corners, it can get frustrating because it's hard to reach in there. You mess up your brushes and you're just not seeing the progress. So you might want to just give up or whatever, or get frustrated or bored. So it's better to just, before you get to that point, just scrape off your shadow and just repress it into the middle, or make a thin layer across the bottom of the pan, and you get to hit pan again, and you get to be happy again because you hit pan in that shadow one more time, and now you have all of the product there ready to use, and it'll make it go quicker. So yeah, repress those shadow, girls. Don't just leave it in the corners. Number 9, I know that panning a look is a really essential part of getting through palettes. Amber F has made that extremely clear. It's a tried and true method. But what I want to tell you is, I want to challenge you to go in there and create different looks. Because you're working with a palette, and let's say you only do cut crease, and you go through one shadow and do a cut crease, and you go through another shadow and do another cut crease. Eventually you get bored of doing the same look. Challenge yourself to do maybe a one shadow look, a different type, like just a smoking the outer V look, a lighter, like the sandwich method, doing lighter on the lips, darker on the crease, or even vice versa. I don't know, just challenge yourself to use different techniques and to come up with different looks that you can use different shadows with. And not only are you gonna build your skills, you're also going to have fun, because you know that you now have different techniques and you have these shadows that you can create multiple looks from, not just the same look, and that'll help speed things along. You're gonna look forward to using your palette every day and not necessarily be like, ugh, I have to do this look again, like I'm ready to move on but I don't know what to do. So yeah, that is one that I've been kind of working with and doing just different kind of styles with the different shadows. And number 10, and the last tip that I have for you guys, is don't use your palette every day. And by that, I don't mean don't use your palette every day. That makes perfect sense, right? No, what I'm saying is, what I have been doing is, in the past, when I've panned palettes, I just stick to exclusively that palette, and it can get so frustrating towards the end. It can just be boring and monotonous. So what I decided to do this year, which is something that some of you ladies are just crazy good about doing, and y'all do such a great job, so I decided to take that and apply it to myself. I just bring in other palettes. I see Amber do this all the time. She incorporates several palettes at once into her Pan That palette. A lot of ladies here do crazy multiple eyeshadows with their Pan That palettes, so that is what I started doing too. I don't stress myself over using this every day. I do have other shadows and other projects, so one day I'll use just those shadows, or one day I'll just use exclusively my Naked palette, but I incorporate colors from there and use them with this. Sometimes I mix colors, eyeshadows that I have in the other project, and mix it up with a shadow from my palette and just make a different color combination. So I just go back and forth between using my other makeup and using my palette that I'm panning, so I won't be stuck in the monotony, and I won't dread having to do a Pan That palette, because I don't have 104 years more to live. I can't be panning one palette a year, so I gotta rotate my palettes, and I have to just work with what I have. So that's enough of that. These are my 10 tips. Hopefully they help somebody out there, any of you, especially if you're just starting a Pan That palette, if this is your first time doing it and you chose a big palette, like I'm going all in, I'm gonna join the big leagues and start with a Naked 3. I hope these tips helped you. There are a lot of tips out there, so use whatever tips are best for you, and let me know in the comments what tips you have that you're using for your Pan That palette, and also if you plan to use any of these tips, which is the one you like most, just let me know down below. And if you're not following me already on Instagram, go to @InTheBeautyMix and follow my postings. I'm so random. I'm random on there. There's a little bit of everything. So thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.